Welcome to the Sick of This Show. I'm pulling in Lawrence, our co-host right now. It's Nick Parrow, Lawrence Winterman, and our
Hello.
special guest, Walter Rhein, coming back for round two with us. And today we're gonna continue busting some myths of rural America as we meet this author, continue meeting this author, who has mastered the notes
Hi.
and
The master
is
of the notes, yes.
and busting myths. So, good morning, Walter. Good morning,
Good
Lawrence. How
morning.
are you both today?
Good.
Doing well.
Good. Good. So, how's your week been, Walter? What have you been up to since we've last spoken?
Oh, yeah. I finally just had to take a break. I took my kids to the water park, which was the right thing. We was just like, you end up pushing things off, and I'm just like, we just got to get out of here and go do something where, and it's just so important to just throw that phone in like a bag and then throw the bag at the bottom of the sea and go do something else. And it's
Yep.
just, and then yesterday we went down the river, so we're trying to get the last bit of summer and kind of do some fun things for our mental health.
Good. Mental health is super important right now,
Cool.
because it's non-existent, I think, in a lot of ways for so many people. Um, So good. I'm glad you got out to do something fun. I got to put my phone down unexpectedly yesterday for like 45 minutes, an hour, because um, we had an open house for school, for one of
Oh,
my kids' schools, and I left my phone in the car. And by the time I got close to the school entrance, my wife was like, "Nope, you're not going back to get it." I was like, "Okay, all
nice.
right. I guess I'm not. Hopefully, it doesn't explode in the car."
That's
And
always
it
a
didn't.
blessing. Yeah, they do overheat in the car, but it's always a blessing when you leave your phone behind. You're always grateful for the break. So
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
just give yourself that. Don't go back and get it ever. Just make that your rule of life, and then
Yeah.
those periods will get longer and longer, and then one day you won't have a phone and you'll be
I,
happy.
I don't know, guys. I'm OCD enough that if I leave my phone behind, like my thumbs twitch and I'm constantly doing where's my phone? Right. I don't have it. Where's my phone?
I I was in the army and they taught you keys, phone, wallet, and you literally pat down the three pockets that you put those in every time you go somewhere. Or
I,
CAC card, keys, phone, wallet, and you got four pockets. And so I used to always just be like, oh shit, because you have shoulder pockets in the army on
yeah.
the
Yeah,
uniform.
but
And that's where you put shit. And you're like, oh shit, did I lose everything? And you do it like 500 times.
Yeah.
yeah, but
That's so funny that you say that, Nick, because I'm not Catholic, but somehow across the years I kind of learned the spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch thing. And
I learned that one
absolutely
too.
absolutely kind of like I do that when I'm leaving. I'm like phone, keys, wallet, what up, sunglasses, phone, keys, wallet. And
Yep.
yeah,
well,
didn't learn it
that,
in the army, kind of learned it from the Catholic.
that's really interesting though, because it shows the conditioning of something like your phone. Like I remember when I first got a cell phone, I was losing it all the time, and you have to
Hmm.
condition yourself to put it in places where you're not losing it because you get so, and then that takes over. And it's like the same thing like with car keys. It's like I hang my car keys by the door so I don't lose them. But
Right.
it's just like that stuff gets in there, and that's a lot of the problems in our society are that method of teaching or indoctrinating the population to do certain behaviors that they do without even thinking about it. And a lot of
Right.
our hate conditioning stems from that kind of thing. So, starting off with something like the phone, like giving yourself, and like you were saying, I'm feeling all twitchy. I feel that way too. And it's good to like, gee, this is something I should explore. I shouldn't just succumb to be like, I'm twitchy, so now I should go pick up my phone. It's I need to overcome this so I'm not controlled by these outside
Totally.
forces.
I,
And it happens to me too.
Walter, I was thinking the other day about, like imagine going back in time to, pre 2007, pre iPhone, and explaining to people like, no, 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 like we're all going to end up with these smartphones, and you literally like you take it to the bathroom with you, like
Yeah.
when you're pooping, you reach it on your phone, or
Yeah.
play Wild Kingdom or whatever the hell the latest stupid game, or check your Substack messages,
My favorite is we used to read like the labels. I used to read labels on bottles while I was in the bathroom because you're
Oh,
bored.
of
Like
course,
sometimes you sit there and you're like, well, fuck, what do I have to do? And that's the worst time when you don't have your phone nowadays.
right,
But mine for me is I get the phantom vibrate. Like where it
Yeah.
just feels like I have my phone. Like I'll be holding my phone and it's not even vibrating, not doing shit, and I'll just feel it vibrate in my pocket. And I'm like, where's my phone?
Yeah.
Fucking looking at my phone. And like and two, like I remember when I got my first cell phone, it was a Nokia, or my dad got his first cell phone, and it was one of those Nokia bricks.
Yeah.
And we learned how to play Snake on it. You
Right.
Oh
could
yeah.
drive over those things with a fucking tank and they wouldn't break. Yet now you drop your phone 2 feet and it shatters.
Yeah. Along those lines too, though, I had, you know how sometimes the phone will tell you what you spent all your time on the phone on last week? It'll send you the thing. So I had one where like this was a couple weeks ago. It's like you spent 7 hours on like uh what some stupid app like what's it called?
Substack.
Wadoku. It was Wadoku. And I'm just like, delete the app. It's like if I spent that much time on that app is gone. And it's like, so now it's got to be something that's like work related, like Substack. But if it's just me wasting time, use that and delete the app. You don't need that.
Yeah, the only thing like I've I used to do I kind of do that is like if I don't use my apps for a while, I'll eventually just start removing them. I'll remove
Yeah.
them from the home screen first. Like I'll be like, oh, I haven't used this one forever. And then I'll always find a reason. It's always right after I delete it. There's something wrong with the account
Right.
or some shit. And you're like, well, now I can't log back in because I deleted everything. I didn't save that password. I don't know what that password was. I
Yeah.
set up this thing 20 years ago. It's
Yeah.
in some Yahoo account that I don't have access to anymore. What the fuck is going on? And
That's
it's
like when
always
you
like your most important thing.
that's like when you accidentally throw away a cable and then like you need it the very next day. And it's like so you're doomed to have like a whole closet just entirely filled with outdated cables that no longer work.
I've done that too. Like it's
No,
happened like that the literal next day. It's like I had that cable
I just threw that away.
and I
Yes,
just threw it away. I
that's what
think it
that's
was a
for.
printer cable once, like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
oddly shaped printer cable head that's not square. It's
yeah.
like a
What's
weird
this
trapeze.
for?
Like, yeah, it's like an archway, and you're like, what the fuck is this? And then you throw it away, and then someone's like, hey, I need something printed. Do you have a printer cable I could borrow? I just bought this new printer for some reason.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my.
Yeah, I did until you showed up.
yeah. Well, that gets us.
Oh, well, thinking of things that get lost sometimes in, the world of talking is, I think, the myth of rural America. Big shift,
Yeah,
big shift
yeah,
on this one. But
yeah.
I think coming into this idea of things getting lost and like not being there when you expect them to be, or hoping they were there when you were expecting them to be. I think, Walter, you have a really good way of breaking through that mythos around rural America. Um, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about maybe what you've been writing this week,
Yeah.
and some of the things that's come up for you in the course of a week's years worth of news in a week.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of it though is just the willingness to do it, and like I was briefly talking about before, like the indoctrination. And Americans, I think, I don't know, I don't know if it's universal or not, but I know in the United States of America, we're just trained to believe a lot of things, and we have reverence for a lot of. We're trained to have reverence for a lot of things that aren't necessarily good for us, and and just that unwillingness to view the issues that hit rural America, and and a lot of that just comes from I grew up in a small town with a graduating class of 106 people. I guess I'm getting a little feedback. Maybe that's I'm a little too noisy. So and it's just been throughout your life at some point, and we all have to just accept that we have to do a deep dive into our own psyche and just start to recognize why some of the things we see and believe we get uncomfortable in certain situations, and it's not because of stuff that we decided on. It's because of stuff that was put there, for the benefit of other powers. And like one of the things, like my rural community, there was racism, there was homophobia. These things are just pushed into you. And it's one of those things like over the years I've been unpacking this and I've talked a lot in various spheres where I feel a lot more comfortable now, where you're talking about those issues where you're not going to inadvertently say something that's just been kind of ingrained into your thinking as just the way the world is, and you don't realize that that's causes harm to people. And I'm mindful of that always, and I'm feeling more comfortable about it. But you still have to be ongoing and be willing to learn. And you just have to also be not become hostile because we're in the United States, everybody becomes hostile. You talk about things like white privilege, instantly people are hostile. And it's like, look, I'm not saying your life isn't hard. It's just there's this thing called privilege. In some ways, your life is easier than other people, and you just have to work through that. But those reactions are so out there. One story I wanted to mention though was just like I think the level it's a combination of racism and homophobia in these small areas. And I think particularly with the homophobia, they're just trying to prevent you from having caring relationships with people. Like boys punch each other rather than just like embrace each other out of fear of being, perceived as
Labeled
not
gay.
masculine enough.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just like
Yeah.
why do we do that? It's like, and over time, I mean, starting in about college, I got into the habit. It's like, let's just give each other a hug. Have somebody I haven't seen in a while, give them a hug. And it's just like step by step. But another one that's really weird is like the reluctance to dance, like men in America and they're reluctant. I don't know, maybe in cities it's different. In rural areas, men won't dance. And it
Well,
wasn't until,
depending on what areas, the South men dance, but it's very
Right.
line dancey.
It's
yeah,
country and it's blind
yeah,
dancing. Exactly.
Yeah.
it's more like doing the Imperial March.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
more like a wooing, like they're at a salon or something. They just don't want to call it that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. We did square dancing growing
Hmm.
up, and there was this weird story I had read about how it was actually Henry Ford who wanted to do square dancing to like save America again. I think he was trying to knock out jazz. He was worried about jazz, so he wanted to like do square dance. So it was this
Right. The
really
evils of
weird.
jazz
Yeah, got all
Yeah,
those
because it originated
squares.
with black people. Right.
yes.
Of
So
course.
it's racism. But this I didn't wake up to this until I moved to Peru. And it's like here I'm in Peru, and you're always like, as a frustrated young man, you're like, oh, I want the opposite sex to be interested in me. Why aren't they interested? So then you're at a bar, and like a beautiful woman comes like, hey, let's go dancing. No, I don't dance. And it's like at some point, it's like all dancing is a person holding their body against you. It's like at some point it occurs to you, it's like, why am I turning this down? It's like this is exactly what I claim that I'm looking for, and then you have the opportunity and you turn it down. So it's yeah, overcoming that stuff that's just indoctrinated into you. It's not to your benefit. It's a lifelong process.
Yeah, and there's some comments coming in the chat around the
Good.
dancing and about how like white men can't dance. And yes, it is a very true stereotype. There's a reason that that stereotype exists. And I think, to be totally honest, I think it goes a lot to this idea of like purity culture and you needing to be in the history of white maleness is purity culture and needing to be square and on the line and straight in
Right.
every single way, and you have to be perfect on it. And I'm not giving white men breaks in this. I'm just saying this is probably where a lot of that came from. Is like I have a really hard time dancing, but I've also always been told my entire life that white men can't dance, and so I may
Yeah.
as well not even try.
I,
And so I just didn't even try. I was like, well, yeah, I got two left feet. I give it up. And so I don't. I mean, I go to mosh pits though, and I just let loose.
sure.
Yeah.
Riddle
And
me this. Can I dance because I'm gay, or am I gay because I can dance?
I
Which came first?
I think that's the
Well,
paradox of gayness.
no.
Honestly, I think a piece of it is that being gay, you're already like confronting and shattering stereotypes about manliness and masculinity.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, fuck it, I guess I can dance.
It's sort of like the bow tie. Like Miranda and I were talking about it yesterday. I had a conversation with the poet Miranda, and she went through a bow tie phase
Right,
and she was transitioning. And I went through a bow tie phase too. And we connected on it because the bow tie is sort of this like, it used to be when it was the fashion, it used to be obviously the fashion. But then men, as it came out of fashion, if you notice, most like straight down the line men don't wear bow ties
right,
unless it's like at a wedding. But if we're not, we do wear bow ties. Like bow ties are freedom, bow ties are fun, bow ties are a little like pop a color that you're unexpected with a pocket square that goes with it. And so we connected on a bow tie story. And it was so fun because we were just like, hey, This is my dancing. I can't dance, but I can bow tie.
I want to talk about that though. I know what you're saying when we say white men can't dance, but I mean Patrick Swayze could dance. I mean
Right.
John
Hmm.
Travolta could dance. So it's
Right.
like and it's sort of like we kind of get that in our head, like, oh, this is not something we do, but it's like you just and it takes a minute because it's the hips. Like my wife she was to do dancing competitions in Peru. So if I couldn't dance, I mean, this wasn't going to be a working relationship. She just dancing is part of her. And it's like white. And like I said, yeah, I'll go out on the dance floor and let you press your body against me, darling. Yeah, I'm totally happy to do that. It's like, why wouldn't we? And it's all about, and the problem is it's the hips. It's like men don't know how to move their hips. And even when I'm starting, you're kind of shuffling your feet. You don't understand this. Then you realize, oh, I can dance and leave my feet completely, both of them on the ground. And this is just what people don't understand. And you learn it by when, when your wife presses her body against you and moves your hips. Now you're dancing. It's like, so you do know how to do this. And it's just like, it's that mental block you have where you're like, I shouldn't be, and that's what we have to overcome. But I mean, it's like it's just being an athlete. I mean, you watch a professional football player make an adjustment to catch a ball. That's body control. That's the same thing as dancing is. Lynn Swan used to take ballet, and these are the great things. Those representation throughout history, and Patrick Swayze was really great at this. I mean, he did all this silly kind of action movies, but he came to it through dance. And he
Right.
would go on TV often and say, "Look, you get in shape. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way, all these things about it that are wonderful." So just bit by bit, you got to change that culture. But you're right. It's that purity indoctrination where it's like we can only do square dancing. We can only dance when we're 6 feet away from our partner. And it's just like that's costing us. That's hurting us.
Well, it's interesting because we on the Gen Xe Daily whatever just before this we were having a conversation about kind of men who think that that it is the obligation of women to dress modestly because men don't have any control over their own urges or their own bodies.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if part of the issue around dancing is kind of the belief, the bullshit line that men get taught that
Yeah.
they can't control their own bodies, they can't control their own urges. So if you're close dancing with a woman, you're like the devil is just right next door.
Yeah. You know, there's something when I first went to Peru too, another thing that happened was they greet each other like the women will greet you by giving you a kiss on the cheek, you know?
Hmm.
And I didn't realize I was in a sorry mental state when I went to Peru, and just that, and it wasn't a thing of arousal. It was just like human contact and the impact that has on you after just a couple of weeks of that, where your whole psyche just kind of relaxes, and you're just like, oh, because you can just depend on, okay, somebody's going to kiss me on the cheek today, and that's something we don't have in the United States. It makes you crazy. I mean, if you
Yeah.
don't just get a human touch, like a kind human touch, and so much of our society, this ridiculous toxic masculinity, you're not allowed to embrace your friend who's a man. You're not allowed to dance with just people. It's just it hurts us. It builds up, and it's like a plaque that gets in your brain and just makes you. Yeah, it's bad for us. And we need to recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also, I think, is on top of that, like it's a patriarchy thing to isolate ourselves
Right.
Yeah.
because we have to feel like we're, I don't know, bigger and better, and that
Yeah.
it's the woman's fault that we would have to keep ourselves away. Because like if you look at like Mormon dances, like I know a bunch of Mormons. I actually got to go to a Mormon service in France once, which was really interesting.
Ooh.
I went right after going to a service in Notre Dame. We went, and I'm not religious. I just went and I realized that I would never make it in uh, in Catholicism because of all the smell. Like I would get so overwhelmed. I'd be like they couldn't keep me there long enough to become a choir boy. So I would have left. Uh, but like, it's really interesting when you talk about like that purity culture is like Mormons, they'll literally put like a freaking hands between you and go, you're too close. And they'll move you
Yeah.
away like certain distance so that you can't touch your partner other than like the shoulders or like a very square spot on the hips. That is not sexual. It's just
Yeah,
very, I'm in control of your body, is what I think it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Um, and it's
Well, it's
really interesting that
weaponizing.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's like weaponizing just human sexuality, you know.
Right.
And there was the Kinsey report, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot too. Because in the Kinsey movie, he said nobody's 100% straight or 100% gay. Everybody's somewhere along that line, you know. And if you just have honest conversations about arousal, like if you're watching a scene, this is kind of a funny story. We're watching a scene. It was just like a kind of a there was a sex scene in a show. I was watching it, and it was you couldn't really tell what you were looking at, and the camera's kind of panning down. You don't know what's the male body or the female body. And I was watching it, and I actually thought I was looking at legs until they got to the hands, and the hands were like this. And my kids were there, and I'm just like, "Gee, I thought those were legs." So then we were all laughing because like people had their feet in an embrace like this. But it's like it gets back, it gets back to that idea. It's like you don't know. It's like, and I even had a friend who got all mad. He was watching a show like when I was in high school, and he's like, "Is that butt I'm seeing? Is that male or female?" And he's all worried about this. And it's like, if you like it, who
If
cares?
you,
Like,
yeah, if
Right.
you like it,
Right.
who
just chill the hell
cares?
out.
Right.
Like that's the fun thing about being the fact that it's a spectrum of
Yeah.
like, especially if you're willing to finally admit that you're somewhere on that spectrum. Like it took me a long time to admit it. I'm glad I finally did. Like I finally admitted I was somewhere on that spectrum. Because you look at it, like I'll go out and my wife and I will go to rock concerts and we'll both look at men and women together. We won't leer, we'll look. We know the difference. But it's also you go to those concerts and people want you to look like there's a reason certain people go to those shows and dress the way they do. They don't want physical attention. They want visual attention. And that's
Right.
why they're there. And if you know how to respect that, they care. They're like, okay, cool. You understand that there's a very distinct line between I'm okay with you gazing at me, but not touching me. And so my wife and I will go to these shows and it's just like the county fair. We'll just sit there and we'll just watch
Yeah.
people. And it's fun. And if you think about it on a spectrum, if you've ever looked at a guy and you're a guy and you've been like, man, that dude's really good looking. Like, God, I wish I could be that good looking.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it in a way that is like egotistical to yourself and you're just looking at that guy and going, man, is he good looking? Is he attractive? You're on the spectrum somewhere. Just admit it, dude. It's okay. Like we all have feelings and we all have thoughts. Like no thoughts are bad thoughts until you act upon them. Like there are shitty thoughts out there. Like I'm going to go rob a bank is a shitty thought.
Right.
I'm going to go kill someone is a shitty thought. But until you act on them, you can let your brain go, oh, I have shitty thoughts. And if you think of them as shitty thoughts, and I'm not saying being gay or being bi is shitty thoughts, I'm just letting these people know that if they think they're shitty thoughts, like, cool,
That's
man,
that's the key.
you
Yeah.
just have them, like, whatever, dude, it's okay. Don't fucking hassle yourself. And I
Yeah.
also think I got my friend Jake Summers in the chat with us today. He's actually coming on later for Vet Talk with Frederick Pogue and I. One of the things he said was hugs. Is men have been from an early age we're taught as boys and men not to hug each other. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's girlish, or that's what the
Yeah.
girls do. You're a lady man. I hate that one. Is you're a lady man, or like you're a wuss. So it's like, no, dickheads. He just wants to say hi to his friend. Like I tell my friends I love them all the time now. And I give
Yeah.
my friends, especially my male friends, like my brother-in-law, I give him, because he's my friend, I give him a hug every time I see him. I tell him I love
Yeah.
him every time I see him because I do and I
Yeah.
care about him. And you need men to tell you that because then it's okay for you to say it back or for others like your sons to see it and go, oh, it's cool if I tell people I love them or that I care
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah.
What the
Dude,
malicious forces? Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say I get this so hard, right? Because for years I've sworn that I was a Kinsey Six, and I'm finally coming to terms with the fact that I have met a couple of women in my life that I would have sex with. I mean, I don't know if they would with me, but
More
I can
possibilities.
actually have physical responses to women.
Oh,
It is kind of a big deal
well,
for me
the
to
Hmm.
problem.
admit,
Yeah,
like, I'm not hard pegged to the six. I could actually, imagine.
well,
I
but the
knew that
issue
would
is,
get you.
Oh,
Speaking of pegging,
well, speaking of pegging, it's that actually funny you mentioned that because my favorite phrase that I got to hear the other day was on the Find Out podcast, and it was from it's Luke's last brain cell. He's a younger kid, younger guy, younger male man. He's like 21, 22. He's an adult. Like I say this for a reason because he says some fucking shitty things at people. He's like, he sits in his car and he just like hates on MAGA, but he says it with such like thought behind it that it's
oh, I think I know
thought
who you mean.
provoking.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things he said on the Find Out podcast, they were talking about like the stupid things that Republicans do that come back to bite them in the ass. And he was like, well, it's the double-sided dildo of consequences coming to fuck them. And I was like, yes, my new favorite phrase, like the double-sided dildo of consequences.
that is
Be-
incredible.
because it's true. Like all of this purity culture, all of this like
Yeah.
abundant, like over masculine bullshit led to the phrases all men or
Yeah.
all women hate men or all
Yeah.
men are bad. And those are phrases I got used to and I don't listen to anymore because they don't apply to me. But I also understand why people don't like them because it is very exclusionary. That being said, at the same time, they're super important because like 90, like let's give it like 80% of men have done something really shitty in their life at some point, and there's a reason women and often other men are afraid of men because we're predominantly the ones to be afraid of, especially men who have beautiful, luscious beards like me, who have this white complexion that shines and gets red when you let it out in the sun too long. And don't know how to dance because it's all that pent up rage
Yeah, like,
that we're not
you
expressed.
would like dancing. Go learn how to dance. Go take a dance class and just enjoy it. And but I think a lot of it is we have that malicious forces. They want to make people feel shame for feelings that are completely normal. And I wrote an article about this. Just we were talking about it about mental health too. Like we talked about the last time. Everybody's had that moment where you felt it's crossed your mind. I could end this problem by the worst
Mm,
possible solution. And it's like everybody has felt that. So we have to stop, stigmatizing it, and just have these open conversations about things like that. And just get rid of the shame. But you see too, like the right is always like, there's man and there's woman. It's simple, They always want to and they just don't want to see any nuance in reality because that gives them this illusion of power. I understand things because they're simple and I only recognize the two things. And it's like once you see that there's all this endless, beautiful possibilities, then they realize they don't have any control. So they got to force that reality on it. But it really is torture. I mean, you're torturing kids when you're making them feel shame. I mean, because I grew up and it was just like constant attacking, like you're in kindergarten and they're like talking about the quote unquote evils of homosexual. It's like, why are you even talking about this? And you become terrified and you don't, and so it makes it so rather than, greet your friend with a hug, you go up and punch him. This isn't helpful to a society. And it's like, this is before you've had a single sexual thought of your own.
Right.
yeah.
And it's weird because the right is the one who's indoctrinating kids with this bizarre, perverse sexuality because they refuse to recognize what human beings are actually like or
Yeah.
accept it.
Or they've pushed down their own feelings so hard because they've been
Yeah.
convinced that they cannot feel the things that they actually do. And that's what gets me the most
Yeah,
about
that's
so many
sad.
of these men is they've been brainwashed and abused into
Yes.
hating themselves and hating everybody else around them. And they
Right.
perpetuate a cycle of abuse because of it.
Yeah.
And yes, they are at blame because they are perpetuating the cycle. They chose to also perpetuate it. It's this thing like of mental health. It's just mental health that we need to talk about. Yes, Golden Mean, I see you. I know you want us to talk about Mike Johnson. We can get to Mike Johnson and his little Johnson at some
Oh
point,
God.
and his weird, creepy app that he has covenant eyes with his son to allow his underage son child to monitor his porn usage and make sure
Yeah.
daddy's not going on to porn sites. Um, and also having all of his data scraped off of his phone and
Yeah.
stored who knows fucking where, which is scary as shit because he's the Speaker of the House or Preacher of the House, sorry. Because
Yeah.
he
That
doesn't
guy.
do much speaking. He does a lot of preaching. Um, wow, I got off on a tangent there. Thanks, Golden. Thanks, friend.
It went to dark place. It went to
Right.
dark place.
But
But back
anyways, like
That guy.
the
Yeah.
big thing out of that is like what I wanted to really get to on that was mental health on all of this is like we've all I know my generation, I'm a millennial. I know my generation talks a lot about our own mental health very openly. And so do a lot of younger kids, anyone or adults that are younger than us. It's a very common thing for us to talk about mental health, but that doesn't mean we actually practice it. Like
Yeah.
you hear a lot of these young men talk about their mental health, but they only do it in like very simple words. It's like, I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. And that's about it. Like
right.
there's no nuance to the conversation because they don't know how to have it. All they've heard is I have to say these words out loud to let people know that I have emotions, but I'm not going to control them. Um,
It's a start. I guess I got to start somewhere. Hopefully that opens the floodgates. The trickle becomes a stream that becomes a river, and then there'll be, then the pressure will be released, which is what everybody needs. Mhm.
Dimitri asks a great question in the chat. Do you guys think these Substack
Yes,
lives are a form of group therapy?
I would say
Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
It's been a great relief talking to both you guys. It just
Yeah.
I always feel better. I'm always tired too because it brings stuff, and then I always find I'm inspired to write after doing these things because a lot of times it's because it's like I wish I'd answered that question better. Let me write an article to explain what I really meant to say. But it's inspiring and just connecting and even stuff that doesn't quite I don't quite understand at first. I'll go out on a walk and it'll kind of start to make more sense. So it's been
Sure.
wonderful.
And it's validating, right? Because, what we see in the chat is, if somebody brings up a tough topic, suddenly you've got like 10 people in the chat who are like, oh, yeah, that happened to me. Oh, yeah, me too, and,
Yeah.
um,
Oh gosh, you got to know. You got to know there's a
Yeah.
community that feels just like you.
right.
And it's bigger than you think. Yep.
Yeah, it's like yesterday I wrote a poem about fibromyalgia because I suffer from fibro and it's an invisible disease and you only really ever talk about it when other people have started talking about it. So I wrote a poem and I read it out loud and the amount of responses I got to it that were I
Good.
have fibro too. Thank you for saying something or my spouse has fibro. They expressed this almost exactly like this. This made me think so much. And I was like, wow, like I forget that I'm not alone. And I talk to
Yeah.
people all the time. Like, I love this because exactly like you said, we just talk to each other. It's a chat. It's almost like it's the best parts of Zoom
Yeah.
chats than like work chats
Right.
without all the work.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we're not talking about like even though we're talking about like this is a job for us in a lot of ways because we are working our asses off to get articles out to do lives to prepare for things but at the same time we're talking about things that matter to us. um I
Mhm.
use them as a way to prepare myself. Like Monday we have a conversation with Dana Dubois and Soso on parenting and the rise of fascism. um
Yeah.
and I'm bringing Soso on because she's a child developmental psychologist.
Right.
Um,
Oh,
and you need to have the tools like this. It's why we
yeah.
have the vet talks. It's why we bring on like Chris Goldsmith or Fred Wellman. Like they help give us tools to help therapeutically get through this without thinking of it as therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so
I,
really great question, Dimitri. Thank you.
I just want to put a pin or a bubble out there. If we're talking about kind of rural issues, right? I do think there's also a conversation for us on the left to have with regards to how the left and how Democrats view small town America and
Yeah.
rural issues and how those places feel abandoned by
Yeah.
Democrats and the left. And we need to figure out how to correct that if we're ever going to be politically competitive again.
And that's a wonderful point. I brought it up a couple times because I've had the privilege of talking to some people, and I grew up small place, red county, and I've talked to people that have spent all their lives in, blue cities and blue states, and there's just such a disconnect between what the reality I experience, and they just can't comprehend. And it's like trying to, and a lot of it is just speaking openly and honestly about what really went on there and what people really actually believe. And but what gets frustrating, like what Lauren said, is you get so much from, and I always say the Democratic Party is conservative, and the Republicans are radically conservative, and we have absolutely no liberal representation in the United States. Even Bernie Sanders is right of center when you look at global sense. And then you get to the point where you get the Ivy League Democrats who they will dismiss a person like me. I'm like, look, I grew up in a red place. I've talked to the people. I today I talked with 4 people that are probably Republican voters. You're in a place where you've never talked to one. You should listen to what I have to say. I'm telling you, progressive progressive policies are popular in red, and I'll get people who just insist. They're like, you can't switch a red seat blue by running a progressive can. They'll say that. I'm like, that is not true. And you're
Yeah.
telling me that from your gated community in some rich area. I'm telling you from the the battlefield, you're wrong. And you just can't have a conversation at all.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
No, I totally understand it because I'm from Vermont originally, and so I love when people mention Bernie because he's a good dude. There are some allegations against him that are not good. There have been things that have floated over him for most of his career, and he has done some incredible things. So we have to weigh the good and the bad on him because especially on this one, his good right now,
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
utility right now for what we need as him as a public servant is through the roof.
Yeah.
I'm not excusing any bad behavior. But his utility right now is through the roof, and we need to remember that politicians are tools to policy. And if we talk about policy ideas, like you said, progressive policies are by far way more popular than conservative. You poll anybody, and they go, "Yeah, I would love to have." Healthcare that I don't have to pay out of pocket for, or my kid to be able to go to school so I'm not in debt for the rest of my life, or they're not in
Yeah.
debt for the rest of their life. I'm still paying on my student loans. I graduated college the first time around 11 years ago now, if not longer. Like, no, 13 years ago, something ridiculous. And like, I'm still paying on my student loan. And I was in the army. Like, let that sink in. Like, I joined the army and they didn't forgive my student loans because I wanted to be able to go to college again.
Right.
And like, but if you ask people in normal areas and who are in red areas, I live in one. I'm in Arkansas. It's very red here. Like I'm getting
Yeah.
ready to move into an even redder area, which is okay because you know what? They're mostly normal people who just have never had anyone ask them or challenge their opinions on things, and they just get away with shit. But once you
Yeah.
put your foot down, they people tend to back off and they give you a lot of respect. And then they go, oh shit, maybe your ideas do have weight because you set a boundary with them in a way that's never been done before. Um, and I think progressive policies have a way of putting that boundary down and going, there's a value that we understand is fundamental to everyone. From there, we go forward. And
Yeah.
I think that's where progressive values win over conservative because it's about progressing people forward and giving us all a chance at pursuing happiness and
Yeah.
Yeah.
pursuing justice and liberty and all the things that we're supposed to be able to pursue as Americans. Um,
And I think that we need to take that and then we need to apply it to facts on the ground, right? So
Yes.
I,
Yep.
a year ago, I moved from Seattle to Indiana so that I could be close to my family. I've been here a year. And here's the giant secret, folks. Indiana is chock full of amazingly charming little towns that were usually centered around some big manufacturing facility and then surrounded by local farmers, right? And the thing that happened in Indiana that happened across the Midwest that Democrats were complicit in is the fleeing of manufacturing from this country. And I don't want to get into, Donald Trump says he wants to bring manufacturing back. He's actually fucking right about this topic. Although the way that he's doing it is insanely
it's
stupid.
completely wrong. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely wrong and stupid. But, Indiana had little towns that used to be like, oh, yeah, that town had the Magnavox manufacturing plant, and that town had the GE manufacturing plant that built this. And that town
Hmm.
had the GM plant that, and none of those plants are there anymore. Those towns got hollowed out. And we are not, as Democrats or progressives or left people, however we want to talk about ourselves. Yeah, Golden Mean, you're right. Clinton absolutely
Yeah.
participated in gutting American manufacturing like this. But we need to talk to those people who live in those towns about how we can actually bring back jobs that people, you know, that have an affordable wage. And that maybe it doesn't require a college degree, maybe it requires trade school. And that's okay.
I
Yeah.
You're
agree.
not a
Get that.
dummy if you don't go to college. If you go learn how to,
Yeah.
operate a complex computerized tool and die
Yeah.
machine, that's fucking great too.
Yeah.
So it's equated that like people divide like when I say education for all, I totally include trade schools. I don't even think you have to
Oh,
mention it.
absolutely.
Because I've always said to my kids, it's like, look, you don't go straight to college. It's like become an electrician. That'll be very useful because as a homeowner, you need to be an
Hmm.
electrician basically, so you don't kill yourself. And it's like I studied physics in college, and it's like, well, learning like becoming an electrician teaches you the practical side of electricity, and then you take the academic and there's the theoretical side of it. The practical side's a lot more useful. But there's for some reason I'll talk about education with people and then they'll assume I'm not when I say education for all, they're like, well, you have to include trade schools. It's like, yeah, trade school is education. A library is education. We need to fund it, libraries. I'm not talking about like a fancy degree from two Ivy League universities, like any knowledge that practically is useful. Yeah, somebody said a plumber, all these things are super useful. But I always tell my kids too, you can get that trade school degree and use that to support yourself and then get another
Hmm.
degree. It never has to stop. And it's like we've got this attitude in the United States where it's like, once you got a job, you're done. You don't have to learn anything anymore. And obviously, that's not the case in our ever evolving technological society where
No,
nothing is
absolutely.
the
Ask
same
all the
from day to
people
day.
in tech who have been laid off because the AI is coming for their jobs, right? You
Yeah.
can't afford to stop learning in this
Yeah.
economy.
Yeah, you have to learn all the time, and I think we're purposely gutting that right now. Like they've the mechanism to enforce standards like that, where we could implement trades as part of a
Yeah.
standard education. Like that would be a good thing, is like building trades into part of your overall schooling education, because then
Yeah.
you learn useful tools. We had that kind of when I was growing up. Like we had
Sure.
um
Shop
home
class.
economics, we had
Yeah.
Yeah.
shop class, we
Yeah.
had also we had different classes that taught us useful skills for manual labor at home, for things at home that were useful and utility based, but it wasn't about
Yeah.
like, this is how you're going to get a job. And I think you're right. Maybe we need to include the language so that it's purposely
Yeah.
noticeable that trades are part of it.
Yeah. Well, you're saying some great things. And what I found too is there are as much as we are frustrated with the things that work against us, it is important to recognize there are a lot of people working for us. And I've kind of found, even though we don't have free education, there's a lot of people making efforts. It's like, let's get it so your kids can get like 3 credits in high school. And they get one program established. It's like, oh, let's try and get 3 more credits. So it is possible. You have to do the work, but you can find ways where you can get like the first year or two of college done even while you're in high school. So there are people out there doing these things, and it's just a matter of a lot. And this is why we talk about it often. Run for any political office you can find, because if you can get on a school board,
Yeah.
and just what you're saying, we can get them like the first couple credits for the tech school. They can get as part of the regular high school curriculum. You can work with these programs, and most of the little local schools will be willing to do that because they want, that's just advertising for them. They can get
Yep.
the students to go right from the high school into the tech school. If they've got a couple things taken care of already, that's great. But yeah, that stuff is kind of out there. And so that's kind of our point of focus. Rather than hope for a universal change, let's do it incrementally, 3 credits at a
And
time.
stop demonizing it when you're in school. Cause like when I was in
Yeah.
high school, if you went to the tech school as part of high school, you were a flunky. You were one of
Yeah.
those kids. You were one of the idiots who's never going to make it as anything. You're not going to do anything in your life. Yet they got a better practical education than I ever did,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways on things. It's like when I went to college for I have 2 degrees. My second one is computer science. Well, I learned computer science and then I took a coding boot camp to get into as an apprenticeship program through the federal government to get in at Amazon. I worked through an apprenticeship program where you went to a coding boot camp. I learned all of my practical skills on actually how to code and write software in that boot camp in like 12 weeks, where I went to school for 3 years and didn't learn
Yeah.
shit that was practical to coding. Like, we need to make school practical again. And I think that's part of the problem is we've lost practicality of school, is we've made it really esoteric in a lot of areas that still have practical applications. And we just need to bring it back. Like, learning how to be a software engineer in college should include build a program or two or
Right.
three that actually work. And you actually have to do it in a project base with a class with like groups, and
Yeah.
you actually have to do the real things. We didn't
Yeah.
do all of those things in a sustained way that taught us how to code.
That's right.
Um,
There's different learning philosophies that work for some kids and not for others. Some places do offer that. You're right though. And it's funny how, because when I was in high school I took a welding class, and it's exactly what you said. I'm just like, I'm curious to learn how to weld. So, and even the guidance counselor discouraged me not to take it. But that same guidance counselor told me not to go to college when it was time for me to graduate, because he said I just incur debt and fail out. So it was sort of like, there's all these contrary, even among
Maybe
the
maybe
same
not a
people,
great
there's
guidance
conflicting
counselor.
arguments. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, that's great. Great advice for a kid.
Yeah,
Yep, you're just going to fail out.
yeah. Well,
Oh my
that's the
God.
way it goes in small areas. Should we ask some more questions? I'm kind of curious. I always kind of forget. We should get some more questions out of the chat. I like
Yeah,
getting them involved.
I'm
Noble
trying to
Glenn
look
just
back.
said,
Mhm.
learn how to build a house budget, how to buy a house, etc. Like practical economics. I don't know about you
Mhm.
guys. My high school or college education didn't teach me how to balance a checkbook or understand the interest rate on a credit card that was being offered to me,
Yeah,
time value of money. Like
yeah,
I, yeah,
Like,
like
it's
we need that kind of financial literacy, numeracy to be taught in school.
yeah. Become
it's funny
financially independent. That should
It's
be.
funny you say that though too, is because that's like a right wing. That tends to be a right wing trope. Is like, oh, we don't. School sucks because we don't learn how to do these things in school. Well, maybe they're right on this one, and
Right, the
maybe
right wing
it's,
can be right. Stock
Well,
clock.
okay. Let me
but
answer
they're
that.
going about it wrong.
Yeah, well, the right deliberately sabotages our school for the point, and then they complain about the things that aren't
Yes,
working. So they take away funding for those kind of classes, and then they turn around and complain kids aren't learning things practical.
sure.
So that's how they work, and it's
I
sort of like,
That's how they work writ large, right? Like
yes,
the
yes,
$3 trillion in tax cuts to billionaires that added to the deficit. We're already
we've got
starting
out
to
of
hear
control
like
spending. Yeah,
they're going to use it as a tool to get rid of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, right? Like that's their plan. They've been doing it for years. They give these giant cuts that balloon the deficit, and then they run around freaking out about the debt and deficit. And it's like, yeah,
yeah,
you guys did that
yep.
last term when you were in. You fucking did it. So
They took civics out of high schools, a majority of high schools, so because too many kids knew their rights, so
Yeah,
Republicans didn't want that anymore. And
right,
then they got these voucher programs so they can defund public education and put it into, private schools, which are allowed to segregate. Private
yeah,
schools can say, I'm not going to teach your kid for whatever reason. So there's all kinds of things. They're deliberately sabotaging our whole educational system.
yeah,
yep,
and it's something too I want to touch back a little bit on its idea of labels around it too, is I think we need to get away from the labels of left and right for now.
That's cool.
Um,
Yeah.
because there's really no left and right overall.
All right. Yeah.
There's radicals, and then there's the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think we need to start bunching just them into a group and let ourselves, like, I keep I've said it a couple times when we've talked about like run for something. Like, there's a website everybody should go to if you're
Yeah.
interested. Go to runforsomething.net. It's that simple. Runforsomething.net, and you can sign up, learn how to run for something. Even if you're not going to run, it gives you a chance to learn and then possibly help somebody else run, because most of these seats in red areas have just never had somebody
Yeah.
worthwhile run for them. And one of the things I have been saying was, maybe you go in and say, because a lot of these areas, it's always like, oh, the Democrats are never going to win because everybody hates Democrats. Well, no, they hate the National Democratic Party, sure. But
Right.
like Arkansas, we gained a Democratic seat in the state house. And we're getting closer to breaking the red supermajority in the state house. And that shows that Democrats are popular because they came in with very progressive ideas and they said, these are what we're going to run on.
Yeah.
And because they talked to the people that live there and they were just like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm a Democrat. And I think the message I want to get in is lean into being a Democrat. Don't
Yeah.
run away from it. Like I had been saying before, maybe introduce that second as who you are. Like if you're going to do something local and help your community, no, fucking lean into that. Like go, I am a Democrat because I believe in the Constitution and don't have to explain yourself. Just give simple, concrete, pro people populism works and pro
Yeah.
people ideas because you're listening to people and then just give those ideas back in a way that people care about and that are helpful. But lean into who you are because we have to establish now, because the Republicans are really good at it and MAGA is really good at it, is establishing Democrat bad guy on
Right.
Yeah.
everything. And it's always the Democrats' fault somehow. Like Biden did it, or Obama did it, the black guy did it, the woman did it, something. It's a Democrat's fault.
Yeah.
And I think we need to lean into it and just say, nah, we're the Democrats. Like us local people, we're
Yeah.
Democrats. We're really into the idea of actually taking care of each other and show it. And just show it because the right has abandoned showing that they care about anybody because they
Yeah.
don't.
You have to combat
And
the
we need to
narrative.
do it. Yeah.
That,
And I'm
that's the
seeing
thing.
names come up. Stacey Abrams, Jess
Yeah.
Piper. Jess Piper is
Yeah.
a great example. She's out of Missouri. She's just like Walter in this. She is a rural person who Democrats basically just ignore. Like she's got incredibly great ideas. She's leading progressive values, but people just ignore her in the larger Democratic Party because she's progressive
Yeah.
in a rural
Right.
area
Because she can't win. Right.
because she
Yeah.
can't win. Yet she could. She can.
Yeah.
She should. I hope she runs for something because she can win.
Yeah.
And I think there's, so again, I'm in Indiana, right? I'm in Fort Wayne. My brother-in-law and I are looking at joining the local Democratic Party. And part of what we've discovered so far is that the folks at like the Democratic Party level in some of these red states have kind of made peace with the idea that they're not going to be in the majority. And so, there's a guy who, one of our local state house reps here is basically like the pet Democrat to his Republican buddies in the
Yeah.
Republican majority. And you have to
Yeah.
run against these people. Like you have to get engaged and primary these people because
Yep.
otherwise we're going to get stuck with the folks who are baked into kind of this idea that certain areas Democrats are never going to win. And
Yeah.
and that's holding us back at the local level as much as anything else sometimes.
Hmm.
But the idea of term limits again, because it just seems like these guys, I think some of the reason so many of them fight tenaciously and they think they're entitled to a seat forever is because they're terrified that if they're not holding office, they're going to be, prosecuted for all their crimes. And I think, I really think there's a lot of corruption
Well,
all over in the whole government, and they just feel like they're entitled to their seats forever. They'll die in their seat rather than step down, and for the sake of protecting a majority, they won't even do that. So it's really kind of scary what's going on, in our
We've
society.
literally had Walter, you say die in their seats. In the last year alone, like total, it's 365-day period,
Yeah.
six Democrats have died in federal office.
Yeah.
Six.
right.
Yeah.
Six. We have a 3-seat minority in the
How many
Yeah.
is it
Democrat
did you guys
in the
create?
House of Representatives.
Yeah.
We lost 3 or 4 just this year.
Yeah.
We literally could have had 4 powerhouse Democrats that were
Yep.
young and cared, even not young, just vibrant, just
Yep.
alive, who weren't dying. Like
They could have
if
blocked the
you're,
murder bill. They could have
Right.
blocked
yeah,
the murder bill, and they
Absolutely.
didn't.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's frustrating.
Yeah. The idea, the particular example of Jerry Connolly, who had esophageal cancer,
Yeah.
which is an incredibly hard to recover from kind of cancer. And, you know, got elected into that position because he was owed it, because he was in the seniority. Like, fuck that
Yeah.
shit. We cannot do that. Like,
It needs to be
we are
merit,
playing a losing game.
Yeah.
It needs to be merit based, and they have to lead by example. And if the best people are the youngest people that just got elected, they should get those seats. And it's sort of like, how do you go up and talk to the whole nation and say we believe in merit when you don't follow those rules,
Absolutely.
within your own
Yeah.
organization?
Yeah.
Frustrating.
And I think that's where this is like we talked about rural America, we've talked about voting, we've talked about talking to people. This is where we all come in. We're the local version of a Democratic Party, and we can reform the national narrative. Like, that's
Yeah,
the cool thing about Substack and Lives and
yeah,
TikTok and places like that is we're forming the narrative now. Like, I don't give a shit what the
absolutely.
National Democratic Party has to say. I don't pay attention to what they say. I don't hear what they say. I just ignore them. I ignore everything they
Yeah,
have to say unless they are not endorsing local candidates who are progressive and who care. Like Mamdani in New York, he has not gotten the endorsement
no,
of a lot of
no,
major Democratic names, and I think
Right.
that's a shame.
It's
yeah,
I
absolute bullshit.
don't care about his prior comments about a global antifada, if that's even what he said, because even if that is what he said, that doesn't mean killing people.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's not what he said. He didn't say a global jihad.
yeah.
That is killing people. And he listened to the people. He won his primary
Yes,
with a large white population of people who voted for him. The largest group that voted for him were men, white
yeah,
men, prior MAGA voters, people who voted for Trump. He won all of them because he listened to their concerns. And instead of dismissing them, he was like, oh, the same concerns I have. Let's just talk about them. It's the FDR mandate. It's the second Bill of Rights. It's the idea that we deserve fairness by just listening to what popular ideas are and running with them.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Sorry,
absolutely.
went on a
No, that was
diatribe
good.
there.
No,
No,
that
that's
we
exactly it.
covered a lot of ground today. I think this was a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah. So we're getting to the top of the hour. And I got a couple more shows coming up today, so I gotta rest the voice, take a coffee
Yeah.
break. Walter, it was incredible having you on. I want to make sure you get to close out the show today for us. But
Oh
before
gosh.
handing it over to you, I want to say thanks, everyone. Please consider subscribing to all three of us. Tomorrow's the last day for my summer sale for the Sick of This Shit with Nick publication for 80% off. If you want to get a paid subscription, I may extend that, but we'll see. Um, but it's been great having everyone here. Amazing questions. Thank you, everyone in the chat, as always. Lawrence, before we hand it off to Walter?
Yeah, I had a couple comments about my t-shirt. If you want to buy a t-shirt, I sell them on my store, Alpaca Lunch. I'm putting the link in here. And go subscribe to Gen Xe, where my lovely co-host Dana Dubois and I get to talk to amazing guys like this all the time.
Wonderful. Perfect. And I'll just say, yeah, thanks so much for having this. And like we were saying before, this opportunity to speak just helps you clarify these arguments. And I find there's a lot of power in just speaking your truth because it helps you put aside those doubts, and it's like we're surrounded by all those lives that make us feel doubts. Thank you guys. When I get to talk to you guys, it's like reinforced. We can course correct a little bit when it's necessary, and it's always going to be necessary a little bit, but it's just like more and more we gain more confidence in our message. And as we speak together, it gets more and more out into the real world. The people that listen can also go out and speak more or just listen if you're only comfortable with that. But I started doing these talks just to improve my ability to communicate what I think is important. And I do feel as if the trend is changing. It's people are more open to a lot of the things we're talking about now. So I think the work we're doing is having an impact. So again, thank you guys for having me, and thanks everybody for being here.
Thanks, everyone in the chat, and we'll see y'all later. See everyone in half an hour for Vet Talk with Frederick Poganai and Bobby Jones. So have a
Awesome.
great day, everyone. Let's stop being sick of this shit and let's start doing it. Thanks, y'all.
Perfect.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Walter.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you guys.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.